am here and I'm coming to you live, and I'm going to try to keep this concise even though it's a very big topic, okay? So, collective grief and the Great Suppression. Let's dig in, shall we? Hi, if you're just joining me. I would love to hear if you are experiencing any bubbling up of the collective grief. What we're going to be talking about is, what is the Great Suppression? What is collective grief? How can we access it and clear it? Why I'm coming to you live, and what masterclass I have coming up called the Pleasure Principle, which is all about being able to access our pleasure, which requires us to access our pain. We're going to be talking about numbness. We're going to be talking about how this whole thing that we've been through collectively isn't personal, but we're all experiencing it at the most personal level. And how when we can't make space to hear and feel each other, and hear and feel each other's pain, and hear and feel each other's grief, and hear and feel each other's fears, we are suppressing, we are numbing, and it's affecting future relationships, it's affecting future connections, and it's affecting us in the present. And when we're in these time periods where the collective is literally asking you to suppress, like asking you to suppress, how this affects everything and all of your connections, and how it's so connected to different time periods in our past, around wartime, around the Great Inquisition, in which many people were asked to not feel and to just be in the state of reactivity and in the state of fear, and how that impacts future generations, how that impacts our DNA, and how it keeps us from connecting with each other. So if you're joining me and you are experiencing any of this, let me know in the chat or in the comments if you're watching the playback. Hi, if you're just joining me. So if you're missing any part of this, you can always go back and watch the replay. I'll post it. But let's start with the way in which different decisions or actions that individuals are making out of fear, out of really survival, and there's nothing wrong with that. I am not here to shame or guilt anyone for making decisions out of fear or out of survival. There are time periods in our life where we literally have to make decisions from this place. But when people are choosing from that place, it's not personal. It's not personal. And we really need to allow everyone to have their own process and have their own feeling in this. And if we don't make space to hear people and to feel people, we're literally not making space for the, I'm like, are we accessing the lung grief right now? When we're not making space for that, we're not making space for expression. And this is a key element to human healing, to human connection, and to our health and well-being is expression. So emoting, feeling, being in the energy is so important to move things through. So we know if we're in a place where there's a lot of censorship happening, where we don't want to hear people that have different beliefs from us, no matter what they are, when we want to categorize and we don't want to hear each other and we don't want to feel what each other might be feeling. One person might be afraid of one thing and a person next to them might be afraid of something totally different. And if we can't make space to have compassion for both of those people and why they might be feeling that, what triggers are coming up for them that are making them feel that way, we are literally asking them to suppress. We're saying, your expression, your triggers, your experience doesn't matter. And this is dangerous. When we are at a point, and we've been here many times in the human history, where we don't make space for expression, where we are censoring, where it seems as though we have to just have one mission and one mission only, and that's the only focus. we are literally suppressing. And what this leads to is the lack of both pleasure and pain. Not being able to hold space for people's pain means we also can't hold space for people's pleasure. They are two sides of the same coin. And why this is so important is if we're not in pleasure and we're not in pain, we're literally in numbness. That's it. I mean, sure, there's many grades to going from pain to pleasure, right? There's many emotions on that landscape. But if we are avoiding feeling the pain, if we're avoiding looking at the pain, if we're avoiding having conversations that are hard, we're literally avoiding feeling. And if we're avoiding feeling, we are not going to be able to access our pleasure. So this is why I'm hosting the masterclass, the Pleasure Principle, where we're going to be diving into this in a deeper way, in a more thoughtful container way, where we're in a Zoom session together. So if you're interested in that, reach out. I have the link in my profile. But I felt the need to come on here and talk about this collective grief because it's in a time period where so many people are having this bubble up, and it's the ones that are able to feel and to be in the feeling that are experiencing the most. And to some extent, that doesn't feel fair. But in another way, you can see it as a gift. By you being able to feel and access that emotion that might not even be yours, it might be at a collective level, you are also able to alchemize it for humanity. And that's powerful stuff. That is so powerful. And I think that's one of the things we mistake being empathic or being a deep feeler, is that we see it as almost like a curse, when in reality, it's a gift to be an alchemist during a time period where so many people are numb and don't even know how to access their feeling or their emotions. So it's a gift. However, if we don't understand that and we see it as a curse, we also, the deep feelers, might suppress it, might try to ward it off, right? And so how do we get into expressing this collective grief? Well, typically, not always, but typically grief lives in the lungs. And so if you're having lung stuff come up, or if you are just feeling a heaviness in your chest area or a collapsing in your chest area, this might be a good indication that you are holding on to some grief that is keeping you from feeling that lightness in your chest. Now, I do have a free meditation in my link about the heart chakra, and how the heart chakra, when we go in and we access that can also help with any of the lung stuff. But also, I just want to add, any way that feels good to you to emote, to express, to feel, to get in your feelings, to dance, to cry, to scream, to rage, to connect with another and just tell them how we're feeling, also clears this. So it's very important to express yourself and to say how you're feeling, what it brings up for you. And one of the things that's been most helpful to me since the start of whatever you want to call the last 2 years was to really look at what the trigger was. When I was being called unsafe, when I was being called, dangerous, what was the trigger? And ultimately, for most of us, it comes back to belonging. And for me personally, I feel as though belonging is really at our root chakra and then also in our heart. And so if you can access where the initial wounding is, where the initial grief is, it can help you to really get in there and clear any residual or collective grief. So if you're wanting to dive into this work even more, this is what we're going to be doing in the Pleasure Principle Masterclass. The link's in my profile. You can also just reach out to me for any other resources. I have a lot of free resources on this. Lastly, I just want to say that anytime that we're being asked to shove down or set aside our personal feelings, beliefs, or insight, that is a time where collectively we're being asked to shove down our expression, and it's not a good thing. No matter what it is, it's not a good thing. We can have our own expression and our own personal beliefs, and we can still have those, connect to that, feel that, and yet still make choices that benefit all. So anytime we're afraid to hear from another that has a different belief system than us or has a different trigger than us, that's a time when ultimately we're being asked to suppress. And that's never a good thing. When you look back in the history of the human family and you learn about what happened through the Vatican of the Great Inquisition, where anyone who is believed to think differently or have different beliefs was literally burned at the stake or stretched to death. And yes, that's extreme. No, I don't think we're necessarily there right now, but it didn't start that way. It never starts the way it finishes. And the way that we stop it from finishing and the way that we're afraid of it finishing is by expressing, is by emoting, is by being really clear about why we believe certain things, where our own personal triggers are that keep us in this emotionally reactive place instead of a very clear and grounded place. And when we can go in and we can do that work, we are so much more powerful because we come at life from our pleasure. We come at life maybe from our pain, but in an embodied way, in a way of understanding our own path and our own purpose, why we're here at this time, where we've been, what past lives we've had that lead us to have the beliefs that we have. This is all very important work. So if you're interested in diving in even further, the Pleasure Principle is coming up. It's actually February 14th. Very heart-centered day. And if you're interested in that, click the link in my profile. You can read more about it. I don't know if this video will fit on Instagram, but it is on my YouTube. And if you want to know more about the videos on my YouTube, you can just click the link in my profile and see my YouTube there. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a beautiful day and take good care of yourselves.